Welcome, Troy Pollock. Troy is the Chief Ambassador of PushPay, a suite of digital giving tools and software for churches. Troy, we are so excited to have you today.
Welcome.
Thank you, Trisha. Thank you, Lisa. It is so cool to be hanging out with the both of you today.
Yes. So you've got so much great knowledge. So, okay, as a virtual staffing company, we have been fully remote and have literally advocated the remote work environment for 10 years now.
We were remote before remote was cool.
Yeah.
Trendsetters.
So we have literally never had an office. So when you joined PushPay back in, I guess, 2012, was it, Troy? You were the first employee. Now you're a staff of 500 people, and your team has, up till recently, worked in office like many businesses. And now, thanks to COVID-19, you've maybe found yourself forced to work remote and kind of bring your team home. So before we even talk about that, I would love to know, what is PushPay's leadership? Really, how would you describe why working together in an office is so valuable for you guys?
Oh, goodness. That's a big question. We could talk about this for quite some time. As you all were innovators by being remote before remote was cool, we were innovating in software and serving a particular market, which is the faith market. And back in 2012, 2013, we were growing rapidly, very, very fast. And culture was really, really, really important to us. And because we were growing so fast, I mean, we were adding 10, 15, 20 staff a week. We thought being in one building was going to be really, really important to us. And that was our philosophy back then. And there's pros and cons to both, obviously. But for us, it served us well because we were growing so fast. Because we were busting at the seams, we needed to be under one roof. Much like a sports team, they don't practice separately. They practice together before they go into the game. So that's the philosophy that we had, and it served us very well. We were completely remote up until COVID. However, we had additional locations, one in America and one in Auckland, New Zealand. So there's been this quasi-remote by having different offices throughout the world, but within those three offices was expected that everybody would show up and work their 9 hours or 8 hours, whatever it was. And it served us very, very well. Now, COVID-19 happens and that whole plan was thrown out the window. And so now all businesses are jumping on the Belay bandwagon and saying, hey, Belay, how do we do it? And you all have been doing this for 10 years. So you have every I dotted and every T crossed, and we're trying to scramble, figure out how to do it. But for us in the early days, Trisha, to answer that question, it was about predominantly culture. We were growing incredibly fast, and we just needed to be a SaaS environment, software as a service environment. Average age of our staff was probably 24, 25. So we had kitchens with foosball and ping pong table. We had Red Bull on tap. We do a weekly meeting in person and kind of talk about what's happening in the organization. So for us, being there, rubbing shoulders was really, really important to us.
I think that's pretty much the ideal SaaS company culture that you just talked about. Like everybody, super cool environment, lots of games and great beverages on tap. I mean, that's awesome. Now, I do have to say, from an HR perspective, you had to have a very busy team at that time. Holy smokes.
Oh my gosh, Lisa. It was insane. Wow. Our recruiters, our HR staff, onboarding that many people.
Yeah.
Week after week, month after month. I mean, it was a hockey stick in terms of growth. And then when you grow that fast, there's a whole set of challenges that come with it because not everybody makes it. It's a very unique type of person that can grow and go very, very fast. So then your attrition rates become higher and higher. So then you got to backfill those roles, and kind of this whole flywheel starts with that. So pros and cons.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned speed. So when COVID happened and you had 500 employees who you pretty much had to send home, right? You had to get them up and running really, really fast. What are some of the things that you implemented? Because you said culture was really important to you. So what are the things that you had to do to get ready to send everybody home? And how did you kind of protect that culture where we sit today?
So our U.S. headquarters are in a place called Redmond, Washington. Redmond is about 15 minutes outside of Seattle. But Redmond is a sistering city to a city called Kirkland. Kirkland is known for two things right now. Costco, obviously, Kirkland.
Yeah, Costco.
But then the
Kirkland,
epicenter, see, I got you. But then the epicenter for where COVID started in the States.
Oh, yes, it
No
did.
way.
That
Oh my goodness, I missed
that
that.
senior
That
citizen
senior-
center, that's the next city to us. So for us, we've been
Whoa.
forced remote from day one, early March.
Okay.
Now, thankfully, Lisa, to answer your question, we've been going through trial runs, if you will, the past couple years, because when it snows in Seattle, contrary to popular belief, it doesn't snow much in Seattle.
Okay.
We usually get one flurry each year, but when it snows in Seattle, the city gets shut down. So for the past 3 years, when Snowmageddon has happened, our team has been practicing what it would be like overnight to go remote. So we have had Chromebooks and laptops. We have apps
awesome.
on people's phones so they can continue to maintain their workflows. Slack, thankfully, Slack allows you to communicate fast, and you can even phone through Slack. So tip of the hat to our IT team, who has been running this play for the last 3 years when Snowmageddon has happened. And it was only for a week. It wasn't for this extended period of time.
Right.
But we've had different trial runs to make sure that we can operate as a business, even when the physical office was shut down. So basically what happened was we just pulled that plan out and ran through that in the beginning of March. Now, here we are at the capture of this podcast, late June, and we're still on this. And so we're navigating as we can. But thankfully, we've had a couple trial runs in the past 3 years during the winter when snow came and the city was shut down and people couldn't get up hills or down hills or to the office, to maintain our workflow from a staff perspective to serving our clients and our customers without taking a step backwards. So huge tip of the hat to our IT team that already had this in place. So systems and processes are crucial to go from in-person office to remote. And thankfully we had that in place.
Right. And I thought Snowmageddons only happened in the South. So
No, we
I thought
have it up
only
here.
the Carolinas and Georgia shut down when there was a
Yes.
sprinkle of snow. It's interesting to me that Seattle does as well.
It is.
So.
It's a misconception because we're about
really
2
is.
hours of drive time from Canada. So people think,
Yeah.
oh, you must get snow, months and months of snow. Ironically enough, it's not. No.
Interesting. So then that begs to me the question, what does the organization think? What do your clients think? How does the team feel about now working remote, where you don't have the cool spaces in office that you get to kind of physically collaborate? How has this experience really changed how the organization and the team is thinking and feeling right now?
So great question. For us, I've talked to a lot of our leadership team and even our frontline staff. And coming out of the gate, kind of early March, April, even into May, finding that flow, that rhythm, that routine was a bit challenged. There was some speed wobbles, so to speak, coming out of the starting gate, because when you're so used to waking up, doing your morning routine, getting in the car, commuting or getting on the bus to the office, that's your flow. You get into the office, you kind of have your whole day planned out. When that is just overnight ripped from underneath you, and your office is the same place that you eat dinner and that you have family time and that you sleep and you play video games. It was challenging from the top all the way down to find that flow. But personally speaking, somebody that is an ambivert, I can be an extrovert when I need to as a leader. And then I also recharge by just being alone. I prefer to be in an office. So for me, I've been going through some of that withdrawal, if you will, and finding that rhythm and routine. Now, I got this office posted up in our house, and I don't ever want to go back to the office. I want to be a Belay employee. I just have found a good flow, a good rhythm, learned how to separate work and life, kind of found that balance. And a lot of our staff is doing that as well. We have a lot of sales development reps, which are SDRs. You know, this is a kind of an entry level role for some people. and they're still living at home with mom and dad, some of them, and
Mhm.
kind of have roommates and so forth. And I've seen photos where they have monitors on their kitchen table and they're kind of having their laptop and doing customer calls on their living room couch. So people have been very flexible, but I think that that was probably the most important thing, is really finding that flow. There's so many positives that come with remote. There is zero commute time. I walk from the bedroom where the shower was to here, and it takes
It's
me
like
about 14
5 second
steps.
commute. Yeah.
5 seconds.
Yeah.
So much better. So I don't come in stressed because I was dealing with Seattle traffic or Charlotte traffic or Atlanta traffic or Los Angeles traffic. I come into the office on time, charged up, ready to rock and roll. It allows people so much flexibility to, if you have kids, to take them to the bus stop or take them to school or feed them lunch or do a load of laundry. You have so much flexibility when you're working remote, not talking even about the overhead cost of not paying a monthly bill for a building. It just allows people to be much more effective and efficient. On the contrary, I think one thing that maybe is a con from in-person office to now going this way is noticing just the communication, projects being done. They can go stale pretty quickly because you're not walking past that person's office, or just quickly as on the way to the bathroom. Hey, Lisa, how's that project going? Quick little check in on this. That quick fire type stuff, it creates some challenges there. So you have to put a system in place so you can still have that over communication. You can still have project management and seeing a project through quick fashion, because that in-person stuff that we could just around the water cooler do a pulse check on something. So counteracting some of the challenges that you do lose, or that are created when you do go remote, but quickly, navigating and pivoting on those to make sure that communication is strong, and over communicate is clutch during this time on project.
I mean, I feel like we're a parrot. We constantly are, chirping and saying over communicate,
Yes.
Since we've been doing this from the get go, we know exactly what you mean. There could be a lot of pain. A lot can fall through the cracks if you don't out front immediately go into leading and working with a ton of communication. We always say 10 times what you think you need to communicate remotely than you would in an office.
And here's the thing,
Communicate
we've been
ad
doing this
nauseum.
for 10 years
Yes.
and we're still refining our communication.
Yeah.
I think it was Trisha, maybe 4 months ago that we're like, hey, we need to add in a weekly staff meeting. I mean, we just thought we were just already communicating so much, but man, it's been so positive to hear from our team that they just love seeing us on video. So here we are 10 years, we're still learning. I think it's an evolving ecosystem when you are working remotely. So I appreciate that you're really putting out there that it's possible to be very successful remotely. But that there are some things, let's be truthful, there are some things that you lose not being in person, and either you embrace that and you find a way around it, or maybe you offer what you guys are doing there at PushPay, and maybe it's a combination of the both.
I love what you said there, Lisa. I love what you said. If I could just double click on that, if that's okay. Talking about, hey, do we have increase of video meetings just to kind of check in with our staff? So for us, you could be eye to eye with somebody for so long. That was our environment. So I've noticed myself and some of our leaders are just scheduling more frequent team meetings, less agenda, more just checking in. Hey, Lisa, how are you doing? Hey, Trisha, how are you doing? No talk about work, no project management, just to do that relational catch up, because you're losing that when you don't have the in-person. So scheduling additional meetings to see eye to eye, because what is leadership at the end of the day? It's servantship. We're here to serve our people. And we got to make sure, because there's so many challenges in the society that we're living in today. We're going through such a tough time. How are they doing? Are people strong? The last thing I will add, the biggest pro of remote for us is it expands the talent pool. We are no
boy, does it ever. Yeah.
Hello.
That's something to get excited about right there. I like that.
Seattle is great. It's a mini Silicon Valley. There's no doubt about it. We have two of the biggest companies in the entire world, Amazon and Microsoft, in our backyard. Talent is a dime a dozen up here. However, as we've been building for 8 years and attracted 500 staff, you need to go beyond Seattle. And what this allows is us to tap into additional talent pools outside of our zip code or the surrounding zip codes. And so we've been able to do that and hire folks on the East Coast and in Central time zone area. And it serves our customer base better because they're on those time zones. So you can tap into additional talent pool, which is a huge, huge blessing.
That's actually, you know, that's part of the mission and the formation of Belay. Originally 10 years ago, that was part of the reason why we even exist, is because Brian Miles, the owner of Belay at the time, knew a gentleman in Wyoming who was having a hard time finding talent, and kind of that was our first client, was a gentleman in Wyoming who couldn't find local talent. And so we paired him with somebody in Atlanta. And they're actually still working together because we knew that people could work together. You could find excellent talent and they didn't have to be in your zip code. So I love that you bring that up as a great example. And to rewind just 2 seconds, I know we talked a lot about systems and processes really being buttoned down and changing a little bit from going remote. Do you have like 1 or 2 examples or maybe specific items or things that you really kind of had to adjust or roll out to allow for remote work to be effective for PushPay?
The tooling system, yeah. So we have been required to get, like I mentioned, the devices. So we have a lot of we're Apple, by the way. So if you're PC people, okay, we love all of our PC people. Love our PC people.
We're not going to shame them now.
Microsoft territory. However, we are very much Apple people, but a lot of our staff have Apple minis, and you can't take that device with you. So the fact that we've had to get actual just the tooling, so their work setup from monitors to screens to phone devices so that they can use an app and not use their cellular. So all that tooling system. The process we use Salesforce as our database system. So the ability to monitor activity. So we have a very high sales driven culture where outbound calls and meetings and scheduling is very important. So from a manager perspective, the ability to check in on these individuals to maintain they're using the same call volume and frequency. So dashboards, visibility into their workflow, how many dials are they making a day? And that's all the way through customer success as well too. How are we serving our customers? So everything is logged in Salesforce so we can run reports on a daily basis and pivot if needed. If our call volume is down, why? Was it just a slow day because it was a holiday? Or was it a slow day because it was rainy and people didn't want, or sunny and people actually at the lake? So it gives you the ability to now manage and make real quick pivots and changes to accommodate that. So I would say from a tooling perspective, it was that phones, devices, make sure that their work is set up and mirrored the same way so they could be effective and efficient like in office, but then B, from the tooling standpoint, so the managers could manage and make sure that people were getting stuff done. Those were 2
visibility, like adding layers of
hacks.
visibility and reporting and application, which is we do the same exact thing. You need to be able to kind of see what people are doing. Awesome, love it.
And that's one of the things that we get asked most often is how do you manage somebody that doesn't sit next to you when you can't go? And so I love that you were hitting on that again. We think we're really smart, but you're saying the exact same thing that PushPay is doing and really gives us credibility, right?
Yes.
We do know what we're talking about.
Thank you, it works.
Yay! So Troy, I know we've got some listeners out there right now, people watching who you've done a good job. You've convinced them that maybe this is possible. Maybe they shouldn't just look at COVID as the only opportunity really to embrace remote work. So what are some things that you could share? What are some best practices or encouragement that you could give other businesses, churches, nonprofits who might be thinking this could be good long-term?
Fun question. Great question. You use the word change, and let's just use it as opportunity to lean into this moment as an opportunity to rethink the way that we've always done business, or you listener, the way that you've always thought business has to be. We're serving a market, the faith-based market, who quickly had to go from in-person gatherings for their weekend worship services to online overnight. They had to. And that's really caused, I think, every industry to rethink the way that they've always set up and structured their office. It no longer has to be in at 8 a.m., out at 5 p.m., you drive and commute to an office. It doesn't have to be that way anymore. Belay has been doing this for 10 years. Pushpay is now doing this. You can work remotely and still have a very successful business. So to the listener out there who is thinking about this, I would encourage him or her to write down what are pros and cons in your given business. Only you know that. We can talk about principles, we can talk about best practices, but you know the intricacies of your business. So write down those pros and cons. There's so many pros to it. There's some cons to it. And then what is most important to you as a business? I mentioned Pushpay is very sales driven. Salespeople are highly emotive, highly emotional. They need to be around people. They need to be rubbing elbows because that person that got the deal on their right or their left gives them energy to do their deal. We do things at Pushpay where we literally ring a gong every time we sign up a new customer. That's emotion. We spin wheels. We do coffee breaks. We have Red Bull on tap for them. For us, that's why one of the reasons why in person is so important, because we need that energy that you can't replicate when you're working alone. It's just challenging. But if that's not your motivator, young business owner or business owner who is rethinking this, and it's more, you know, you're already set in motion and you're just moving along, what are some of the pros and cons that go along with what you're trying to achieve? What is your mission? What is your vision? And then building a plan and trying things out. Maybe a baby step is just 2 days a week. You allow your people to go remote.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't go all 5 days, all 30 days out of the month. You just go 2 days a week and you measure that. You view the trends, you check in and see how your staff is doing. Then you try 3 days, then you try 4 days. Next thing you know, you're ready to rock and roll and you already have the system in place. But I am from the school of thought, it's not either or, it's both. And it can be a both and.
I love that.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be all remote or all in person. Try both. And there's no one size fits all. But I will say, as Belay has been doing it successfully for 10 years, Pushpay was thrust into this about 4 months ago. You can run a very successful business from remote working only. And I would encourage those business leaders to give it a shot.
Wow,
I
what a great
love
way
it.
to end this
I
interview. You teed it up awesome.
If I had a gong,
yes.
I'd be gonging for you.
Yes. Wow, Troy, this was so fun. I have just enjoyed our time together. I feel like we could continue to talk on and on and on. And you said a lot of things that I think, I don't know, I think we'll need to circle back to. So just thank you so much for spending time with us today and sharing all your knowledge and being real, you know, being truthful that there is a way. You don't have to do one or the other. That I love how you said it's a both and. So thank you for your time. We really enjoyed having you on.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Lisa.
Troy.
And thank you, Trisha.
Thank you.
Thank you.